Hello there, I am Jaime Elizondo from Real World Ranching, and today's podcast is about the direct planting of forage fodder trees in your fields with a no-till seeder. Today, I am going to teach you my experiences in direct planting by seed of forage trees directly into your pastures or paddocks. By doing this, the cost of planting beneficial trees in your fields is reduced by up to 30 times. That's 3,000%. So welcome back to another episode of Fat Cows, Fat Wallet podcast. I hope you are well and enjoying the day. Today, I want to talk about the direct planting of fodder trees in your paddock or fields. We all know the great advantages of having enough shade for our cattle and for ourselves. What many have not taken advantage of on their farms is having enough forage trees that can be copied in the difficult season to feed their cattle with excellent quality forage. I have learned this in the last 25 years, since before I used fodder trees but for direct grazing. If you are one of my total grazing students, you know that forage trees grow much slower than grasses. So when you direct graze them or browse them, one of two things will happen. If you go back to grazing when the grass is at its optimum point in quality, the tree has not yet fully recovered and it becomes an overgrazing for the tree. That is, you go back to regrazing the tree before it has fully recovered. That means the tree will be weakened and produce much less. If you wait until the tree has fully recovered, the grass will be overmature by then. So this is why I learned over the years that it is not convenient to directly graze fodder trees mixed with pasture grass, which in my case is Leucaena with common Bermuda grass. If you know of someone who you think will appreciate your sharing this podcast, please share it to help as many people as possible and improve the world we live in. You can regenerate your land and double your productivity with fodder trees by copicing them in the difficult season for livestock to consume. In addition, the savings in money are considerable by replacing high-protein concentrates such as soybean meal, high-quality alfalfa hay, which has risen so much in price recently. Fodder trees, in addition to recycling nutrients that are beyond what the roots of your grasses can reach, serve a multitude of functions. They give shade for cattle and people. They provide habitat for birds and other animals, birds that will help control pests such as the caterpillars and the armyworm. They will lower the temperature under their shade, which allows a more efficient nitrogen cycle. More life in the soil under their shade thanks to the abundant mycorrhiza in its roots. Some species, such as Leucaena and honey locust, fix nitrogen and the grass grows faster under their diffuse shade. I have learned this by observing and planting trees in rows with a no-till drill. By having enough fodder trees on your farm, your supplementation cost, your protein supplementation cost, will be greatly reduced. The production of your pastures will increase and the performance of your cattle will improve. Now, I want to share my experience with you so that you can consider if it is something that you would like to implement on your farm. This knowledge will help you reduce costs, provide high-quality fodder in difficult times, and create a more resilient environment on your farm thanks to greater biodiversity. So, do you want to plant fodder trees in the most economical way on your farm? This is what you should consider. Number one, choose the tree species you want to have on your farm. Observe the species that grow in your environment. Which one grows better? Then consider the quality of the forage of those species. For example, on my farm, leucaena, mimosa, black locust, honey locust, mulberry, willow grow very well. But on your farm, it may be different. The first four give very good forage, what highly desired by my cattle. Leucaena is highly palatable and fixes nitrogen to the soil as a legume. Now you may say, well, leucaena goes in more as subtropical area and I am up in the north, or it's too droughty where I am. Well, you can plant Siberian peach shrub or caragana, which is also a legume tree, highly palatable, and it grows in Canada. It comes from Siberia, so it can take the drought and the extreme cold. It is important to plant only the variety that grows in your area, since the ones sold by the commercial houses comes from Australia, the leucaena, and it may not resist your local pests. This happened to me, and I had to go and harvest seeds from native leucaena trees that grew along the banks of the canals. Once I did this, the pest problems are gone. Now let's talk about mulberry. The mulberry leaves, Morus alba, are very high quality as they have been selected to feed the silkworms and they grow very fast. I have been in a monastery in France, in Fort Calquier, where they had 300-year-old mulberry trees that have been copied every year to use their fodder, and they continue to produce. Honey locust is another tree that is very palatable to livestock, but they have thorns, and to procure the grafted varieties that are thornless is very expensive. Willow can also be used and has the advantage that it supports flooded land and keeps its foliage green even after frost. So find the species or species that grow better in your area. 2, how to protect your trees from livestock. Cattle, cows, or sheep or goats can kill small trees, and the row of trees should be protected by electric galvanized wire fencing 3 feet apart from the road on both sides of the tree line. Later, when they grow, they must continue to be protected so that your cattle do not eat their bark, which would kill the fodder tree. If 2 or 3 wires are necessary so that your calves or sheep or goats do not go under it to damage them, then that will have to be done. 3, distance between rows and orientation of the rows. This will depend on the amount and strength of sunlight on your farm. That depends on your latitude and altitude. Remember that the trees will provide shade and protection as barriers against cold winds and dry and hot winds in different seasons. This is why the orientation is so important, because you're going to create a microclimate in your farm that is better suited for your livestock and your soil. I generally like to plant the rows from east to west in the northern hemisphere at 100 feet between rows. Although now I have found that grass grows much better under the diffuse shade of leucaena, and a row every 16 meters between rows is better. In the case of a steep slope, it will be better to plant the rows a little offset to a perpendicular line to the slope in order to keep the water longer on your land before it runs off. The distance between trees in the initial row must be high because some are going to die, and since it is a planting that we want to last 40 years or more, this is so important. I look or I try for at least 1 seed every foot in the row. For direct seeding, it is important to clean very well the soil where the row of trees is going to go with a portable weed eater, one of those gasoline, the stronger ones. Now, you do not want to till the soil because then a lot of weeds will come up. So you just remove all the vegetation with the weed eater so that all the grass is removed and the soil is clean. This is needed because the seedlings cannot compete well with the grass if you do not do this. Once the seedlings begin to grow, you can continue cleaning around with the same portable, gasoline-powered weed eater with a protection so as not to damage the seedlings. You should also protect them from deer, rabbits, and jackrabbits as they could kill the seedlings. 4. How to harvest or use the forage of your trees. To coppice them, we cut it with a chainsaw at a height of around 3 feet above the ground so that the branches fall underground and our livestock can consume it. If you want the cattle to consume them in their direct grazing, then they could be planted on 30% of the area at the end of the paddock or field and give your cattle access to the trees when they are needed, cattle or livestock, goats, sheep, the same. To keep the stems slender so that they can be easily bent by your cattle to access the forage or foliage, they should be sown very close together in the line and at a distance of 6 feet between lines. This has the advantage of less labor, but you don't need to coppice it, but the great disadvantage of not having shade in the paddocks and the benefit of higher grass production under the diffused shade if they were spread out on the field at the correct distance between rows, like a savanna. Personally, I prefer rows every 50 feet, protected with a permanent electric fence, and use them by coppicing only once a year. Be careful, as it is important when coppicing your trees to leave a tree without coppicing every 33 feet in the line for shade. 5. In addition to the rows of fodder trees, it is desirable to have other trees of greater size or height scattered in the fields or pastures to create higher biodiversity. They can be trees of great value for their wood or trees that bear good quality fruit. They can also be planted in the rows of fodder trees and thus increase biodiversity. A book that I recommend on this is Tree Crops by Rosa. So let's go to the conclusion and summary. 1. Choose the tree species you want to have on your farm after carefully observing what grows around. 2. Protect them from your livestock. 3. Use the correct distance between rows and the correct orientation for your specific farm or ranch. 4. How to harvest or use the forage of your trees. We need to start a project with the end in mind and work back from there. 5. In addition to the rows of fodder trees, it is advisable to have other species for greater biodiversity. Remember, you can double your stocking rate by using fodder trees on your farm. It's essential to improve your profitability and the resiliency of your farm and business to the rising cost of inputs and droughts that are becoming more frequent. It is our duty to leave the land better than we received it, and trees help in a great way to achieve this. Well, friends, that's all for today. See you next time. Until then, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube, or join us for the weekly email at www.rwranching.com/join. Have a great day and rest of the week. Goodbye.